a journey to seek answers to the questions that have crossed all of our minds. What happens to us when we die? Is there an afterlife? I'm a regular guy who discovered the gift of psychic mediumship in my 30s. My passion for history and the unknown have put me right here, right now. My mantra for anything paranormal is, we don't know much and anything is possible. Join me as we find our way through the stories, evidence, and experiences of the paranormal and beyond in search of answers, even if that leads to more questions. Are you with me?
Happy Tuesday, everybody out there. Thanks for listening to the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orbea, and we are on Let's Talk Radio, WLTK-DB.com. And if you've been following us on Facebook, you may have seen our new logo. It's awesome. Thanks to Todd, the station manager, Todd Bates. Great new logo, and more exciting news where it's all the content's available on Audible through Amazon now. And so go check that out. You can find all the shows on the station, which there's stuff every day of the week, Monday through Friday, and lots of great content. So I encourage you, if you're only listening to my show, you're missing out. Go listen out to some of the other shows as well. But you can find all the archive shows at WLTK-DB.com, or you can find them wherever you get your podcast from every week. So if you go to Google or Spotify, now Audible, Apple, so you can find us in a lot of different places. Podbean, the station has a Podbean page. I do as well. I'm not so quick as to upload my archived shows on there, but I do my best. So there's lots of places you can find all the content on Let's Talk Radio, and we're streaming on YouTube as well. So if you're listening on the over the air here, head on over to YouTube and just / WLTK-DB, and you'll find the station there. So excited to be trying some new things and growing the show. And I just want to say thank you to all the listeners out there who listen every week. And especially if you listen live, that's awesome. We have a chat room on the station at WLTKDB.com. So if you want to ask a question of me or my guest that I have on tonight, go on the station chat and put a comment there, and we'll be sure to try and answer that the best we can. And also on YouTube, if you want to make a comment on the video, if you have a question, we'll do our best to answer it. So again, thanks for listening, and really appreciate it. We're on episode 24, June 15th. My word. Is it just me, or is time just flying faster and faster? Or maybe I'm just getting older. Who knows? But time's sure flying by. I want to give a special shout out to all the dads out there. Maybe if you're not an actual dad, but you do things that dads do, happy Father's Day. If you are a dad to a four-legged family member, happy Father's Day. But thanks to all the dads out there and everything that you do, and happy Father's Day. And I'm really excited for the first time since the pandemic started, which feels like so long ago. Get to get out and do an investigation. So I'm going to be going out with Olympic Peninsula Paranormal Society this Friday night in Port Townsend. And for those out there who don't know Port Townsend or never been there or heard of it, it's on the Olympic Peninsula here in Washington. So Puget Sound area, but it's out on the Olympic Peninsula, and it's one of the oldest towns up here in this whole area in the Northwest as far as Washington goes. And it's a big shipping timber town. There's a lot of haunted activity in Port Townsend. I'll just say that. Tons of experiences that people have, a lot of different buildings. The downtown is really cool. It's all really old buildings for the West Coast. Don't say anything, people on the East Coast. You have much older stuff. But excited to get out and get into a space and do an investigation. So next week for the show, next Tuesday, I'm going to be in the Walker Ames house. That's the house, if you're watching on YouTube, it's my background here. and I'm going to do the show from the Walker Ames house, and I'm going to give a recap of whatever I can appropriately for from the investigation. So that means I've got to get through my data that I collect throughout the investigation, and we'll see if I come up with any interesting evidence, and we'll definitely play that for you. So I'm excited about that. Excited to get out of Port Gamble. Love it here. Don't get me wrong, but it's nice to get out and go somewhere else. And I'm going to be staying at the Haunted Palace Hotel in Port Townsend. So anybody who stayed there, it's a really neat place. It was a brothel at one point. And so we got a really cool room, and excited to go stay there and see if anything happens. Of course, I'll probably be asleep, but maybe I'll leave a recorder running. So really excited for that. And so look for that next week. We'll do a recap of that and talk about some of the haunted locations in Port Townsend, because it's just such a cool place. So yeah, really excited about that. But tonight I'm excited to have special guest. She's a paranormal investigator, and she is over in Minnesota, and she has always been interested in the paranormal since a young child. In 2010, she met a group of people with the same passion for the paranormal as her, and they formed, now forgive me if I mispronounce this because I'm bad with X's and names, St. Croix Paranormal. Is that right, Jill?
Yes, you said it perfectly.
All right. So her team has been all over the place. They've investigated all over, and I'm sure she's got tons of stories. I'm going to ask her about some of the places. And they've been featured on My Ghost Story, and they also produce their own local cable show called Paranormal Patrol. So Jill's got an even more interesting story, because she's purchased a haunted home, one that's well-known haunted location, and she's able to live in it, and people can come investigate. And so we're going to be getting into that. It's called the Boyd House, if anybody's ever heard of that. And I'll just put a question out to the audience. Do you live in a haunted house? And if you do, go ahead and comment on the station chat, WLTK-DB.com, what city or town you're in, and maybe just a brief sentence or two of what kind of activity you have there. But anyways, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Jill Shelley from St. Croix Paranormal. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Right on. So you go, and doing research on your team's website and everything. My gosh, you've probably got a ton of stories. So, but I will say, let's start towards the beginning, the beginning of time.
Yes.
So, you sounds like you've had experiences as kids, and I think a lot of us do, and we just don't maybe realize it. But tell us about early on. What was your experience or experiences, and how did you know it was something more than meets the eye?
Well, I always was kind of fascinated by ghosts as a young kid. I always loved the ghost stories, scary movies, loved to be scared. Like, I even look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, they took me to see The Blob when I was 5, so it was like, and I remember being totally freaked out by that. But anyway, that kind of, I think, stemmed a little bit about, liking some of the scary horror type films, and just kind of getting you that way. But I think what really got me intrigued is I had an experience at my grandmother's house when I was a young child. They had a room that upstairs that none of us kids really liked. It was always kind of, you just got that unwelcome feel, like, do not come in here. Sure. You didn't want, you always thought somebody was staring at you through the closet. Like, you kind of like quick run in there, do a few things, then you run out. Like, you could only play in there a little bit. Like, everybody was like terrified of that room.
Right.
And one particular night, so my grandparents always slept downstairs. That was their bedroom. So upstairs, it was just my parents and myself. And I just kind of woke up in the middle of the night, and I heard footsteps coming out of that room towards the door I was sleeping in. Of course, I'm a young kid. I'm freaking out. My back is towards the door. So at this point, I am not going to look to see what is there, because I must have been, I don't know, I was probably like, 7, 8, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of felt like this intense, like I've never felt anything like almost stare through you. Like you could almost feel the heat, the intensity of them just like staring at you. But I would not turn around. And then you kind of heard a sigh, and then you heard the footsteps walk back in the room. Of course, then I threw the blankets over my head and I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait for morning. And so then, and I really knew it wasn't my parents because I could hear both of them actually snoring in the next room.
Oh,
And so, you know, I'm kind of like, okay, great. And then, so the next morning I kind of mentioned to my grandma about it, who's extremely religious, and I really respected a lot of her views and opinions and stuff. But she's just like, oh, honey, that's just a ghost and he won't hurt you. And I was like, whoa. And grandma's just got this laid back attitude. I need to learn more, you know. So then I just started like, oh my gosh, I gotta start learning about ghosts. So I would like go to the library and read books, and then you'd watch movies, and, you know, and just that kind of thing. And you know, I probably had some subtle experiences along the way, but you know, it wasn't really till you got the advent of some of the ghost TV shows that came out that I was like, oh my gosh, you really could do this. You could do something like this. I didn't know that. You know, and then
that's exactly what I said when
Yeah.
Ghost Hunters came out in like 2004, 2005, somewhere around there. I was like, wait, what?
Right.
You can go out and do this?
Yeah. And so then from there, I just, like I said, I just ended up slowly meeting some people into the paranormal. And then we formed our group in 2010, St. Croix Paranormal, and rest is kind of some history and some really fun adventures.
Nice. Well, it's life is all about having adventures. And I think it's funny that when you're talking about, you know, the room upstairs, you guys didn't like to go into, you just casually said, yeah, my grandparents' room was downstairs. I wonder why. Maybe they didn't like to go up and down the stairs, but maybe there's another reason. That's funny. And of course you had the ever immortal shield of blankets.
Yes,
you know,
yes, because that will save you as a child. Yes, you're hiding, nobody can get at you.
Yeah. And then, you know, the old saying of, you know, stare harder, your eyes are going to burn a hole through me, you know.
Yes,
that's kind of what you felt. That's interesting.
Yes, that was pretty creepy as a young child, you know.
Yeah. And I've had kind of a similar with not when I was a kid, but later finding out. But you know, when I often think of, you know, my grandparents' generation, Depression era, you know, Depression era people and stuff, and religion, and how close the majority of people were with religion, there was a lot of them were in, you know, were spiritual in a sense too, or open to, or, you know, they had experiences, and like, you know, your grandmother saying, oh, that's just a ghost. You know, it's kind of surprising whenever I hear that, because I always just have, you know, the thought of, you know, that generation of people that they just don't believe in any of that stuff, which I'm sure a lot of them don't, but it's nice to hear other people that have, you know, their grandparents say something like that. And
yeah, more often than not, I find that the elderly generation, just they were raised that way. If you talked about this, oh my God, you're crazy, you got to get, you know, in the loony bin. So it was just something not talked about. So yeah, it's to be a rarity to find people in that generation that was just like, yeah, it's a ghost.
Yeah. So you know, growing up, when, you know, did you, you know, other experiences you may have had, did you feel you were able to talk to people about it, or even when you're just kind of first getting into actual paranormal research, you know, were you pretty hesitant, you know, about talking about it?
Not when I got to people who really knew, you know, who had the same, you know, interest, and so they've had some similar experiences. So they were, you know, as you say, more accepting.
Right.
For those that didn't know, they were just kind of like, I just kind of kept it to myself, because then you were the weird kid. So you just kind of, you know, you just kind of dealt with things.
Yeah. I didn't, you know, I just, like in my show intro, I discovered psychic mediumship in my 30s, and then it made me look back on my life, and I think people just thought I was weird, but not anything to do with ghosts. They just thought I was weird, but I think that was it, and I'm going to blame it on that.
There you go.
Um, so coming up, especially when, the curse of the TV shows, I call it the curse of the ghost TV shows. They're great for making more people aware of paranormal research, but there's also countered by sensationalism and that kind of stuff. But coming up, did any investigators or researchers, any specific books that, really, you sunk your teeth into and they was inspiring for you? Any famous investigators or any specific books?
Not really. I mean, a lot of times with like some of the famous things on TV was more for me as a research tool, as to finding out about new locations and getting information. And then I'd look it up and like, can I go there? So, so I
Nice.
wouldn't say necessarily, and I've read a lot of books, I wouldn't say any specific author. It's just, I'm open to a wealth of knowledge, and I just kind of take it all in because you learn from all aspects.
Right. And we got to keep learning, right? You
Yes.
never stop learning. Yeah, I'm into reading right now the ESP Hauntings and Poltergeist by Lloyd Arbach. And that's interesting so far. And I'm interested to see what my perspective will be after reading that. It's a parapsychology book. So if you know any parapsychologists, they always leave you questioning everything. I admit I'm a believer in the paranormal. I started as an open skeptic, really open to it, but being where I live and work here in Port Gamble, I became a believer. Where do you put yourself on the spectrum? Skeptic, open skeptic, believer?
I think part of, besides just kind of the whole background of all the horror movies, all the weird things. Eventually when it came down to it, I was really afraid to die. Like I didn't know, like I couldn't handle like being buried in the ground, blackness. That's it. Like I just could not handle thinking about that. Like I just didn't want that to be it. So I just kind of wanted to prove to myself that there was another side. So with getting to interact with spirits, with different equipment and different experiences I've had throughout the years, definitely convinced that there's another side. So I kind of turn a lot of my research that I do currently is like, what's going on over there? Like, what can you tell me about the other side? So that's kind of where I've been focusing at a little bit too.
Yeah, and me too, I would say the same thing. Once you have had enough experiences to where in your own belief system, you're like, yeah, it's real. Now what?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of in the same place of trying to figure out, how it works. And, my guess is, I may scratch the surface. We all may scratch the surface, but we may not all comprehend until it's that time. Right. Oddly enough, in my experience with doing readings and mediumship, the movie Beetlejuice had a lot of things right, I think. I know it sounds silly to say, but there's like, they go to the place and they got to take a number, and they're waiting to learn how to be a ghost.
Right.
Not necessarily that exact thing, but I think there's some similarities there with what really happened. So, and I hope you find some answers. How many people listening out there, who are interested in the paranormal, or maybe you are an investigator or a psychic, how many of you kind of started out the way Jill did, where, we all think about death, and probably not in the best way. And, I like your tact of, well, I'm going to prove to myself that it doesn't end. How many people out there, if you want to comment, go to the station chat, WLTK-DB.com, and put that on there. If you kind of started the same way, you didn't like to think about it, but you wanted to prove to yourself or maybe others that there's something else going on. And we're all on that quest, right? We all want to know what happens. And in your experiences, I listened to a lot of the audio that you guys have, and some of it's really good. Um, that you can hear the different kinds of voices, especially in the Boyd house. Um, so why do people say the things they do? Why do why do they turn lights on and off? Right? Why do they do certain things to communicate, or they say certain things? Hello is a very common one, right? Piece of
Right, we
audio
hear
that you
that
can get.
often.
Yeah, but those are some of the best though. They come through super clear usually.
Mm-hmm.
So why do they talk in certain ways? Why do they do certain things? That because there are similarities kind of across the spectrum of people's experiences. And we're going to take our first station break, and when we come back, we're going to keep diving in here with investigator Jill Shelley. Thanks for being on the show. Thanks everybody for listening. We're going to pay the bills. We'll be right back after a quick station break on Let's Talk Radio.
We are controlling transmission.
WLTK-DB. Let's talk. A book of mystery. A book of one man's journey. A book of the afterlife. A book you must read. Ghost and Me by 5-time award-winning author Kevin Killen is a book of one man's journey in the search of the afterlife. Read of his chilling childhood experience, his investigative journeys, and his opinions of paranormal activity. Ghost and Me by Kevin Killen, an Ozark Mountain publication. Get your copy today online or wherever books are sold. Paranormal evidence. We scour the internet searching for true paranormal captures, information, and education. New methods mixed with old methods of capturing this mysterious phenomenon. Well, look no further for your ghostly voices than ghostly-voices.com. Nicole Tito and Lisa Crick take you on a journey into their paranormal world and provide you with true EVP and ITC audio captures, compelling information on debunking, some hilarious bloopers, and more. Remember, these two are veterans in the field and know how to capture the true evidence you are looking for. Ghostly-voices.com, your paranormal stop for true audio evidence. Ghostly-voices.com.
Well, they say that you're a fool. You believe in magic.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm Pete Orbea, your host, and 22 past the hour here. Thanks everybody on the East Coast for staying up and listening, if you are. And thanks to my guest, Jill Shelley. And it's late where she is too, so thanks for staying up.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm on vacation, so it works out well.
Oh, awesome. What's that like?
It's enjoyable.
I don't know what vacation is. So before the break, I was kind of talking about, there's certain things people say, or the way they do it. And your team, on your website kind of has an approach of goes to different things as a way to communicate. So in your experience, what's kind of been the most common that you seem to experience? Is it, do you see stuff? If you're lucky, you see stuff, or is it audio, physical sounds, footsteps? What's kind of the, your, bread and butter that you experience?
Oh gosh, it just ranges from a whole wide variety of things, depending on location and what we're doing. It runs from the gamut pretty much of everything. Audio, of course, most of the time you don't get till you get home and kind of review stuff.
Right.
Which is kind of a bummer, but I love running the spirit box. That's like my favorite investigation tool. I could use that all day long. We've actually been starting to use the Estes method.
Are you psychic? I was going to ask you that.
And we've had some really, really crazy responses. Now we're still kind of going through stuff, but we were just at the the old Salem house in Salem, Illinois, just a new place that just kind of opened. So it used to be a hospital, and then I think it was like a nursing home, just and a lot of death there, a lot to do with the like war.
Yeah.
So they just a lot of activity at the house. We were doing the Estes method, and downstairs we got like a kid named Virgil, and he's like, "This is a hospital. My mom's here. She's sick. Don't you know?" And then we started talking about guns and the war. So that was kind of interesting. But I think the one that really got to me was we went upstairs into the bedroom, up into this room where people are not welcome. Like you can tell the spirit doesn't want you in the room.
Okay.
And the first thing we started getting off the Estes method was go, get out, leave. Like they didn't want you there. And we were like, well, we just kind of want to get to know you. You know, is it okay if we sit here and have a conversation with you? And then they said, it's time for prayers. And we're like, oh, time for prayers. Okay. Do you want us to say the Our Father? Yes. So we said the Our Father. While we were doing that, while we were saying it, we heard, great, keep it going, love it. You know, they were saying that. We get done with it. How was that? It was good. Say it again. So I'm like, so then we start saying it, but we say it faster. You know, we're like, Our Father who art in heaven. And then they go, say it slower. So
geez.
Like, okay. And then they're like, oh, is it morning? And I said, yes, it's morning. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And I didn't know exactly, but I kind of knew the time. And I said, no, it's 12:30 in the morning. No, it's not. It's 12:41. We pulled out our phone. It was 12:41.
That's interesting.
And I said, well, how do you know that? Well, I just know. And then they started to have a conversation about their son, Daniel, who died, who had fallen off a horse after drinking too much. So it was really interesting. And then they were even like, kind of like if me and the other investigator were kind of talking amongst ourselves, you know, of course, the other investigators got the headphones on, doesn't know what we're saying or anything. So we're like kind of having like a mini conversation about ourselves. And she's like, stop talking. And she's like, I'm talking. Listen. And it's like, you're not listening. And I'm like, we're listening. And then they even did a joke where they're like, ha ha, just kidding. So it was like,
oh geez.
Yeah. And it was just, I was so floored by that. And that was our first time actually doing the Estes method. I hadn't done that. So now we do it all the time and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to have one person that's not a part of what's going on in the room, you know, that kind of noise isolation and visualize isolation as well, so that they don't have their own filter on what they interpret of hearing. So that's really cool. I mean, that sounds like a conversation. And I think that's what, you know, investigators who use ITC, I think that's what, you know, I do it too. I think that's what we go for. We want that conversation. So that's awesome. And I hope that continues for you. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's kind of our new thing. We Teresa, who's on our team, she's really good at hearing it with the headphones on. Like we've all tried it and she's the one who gets the best results. I don't know if she's better at channeling things or what. So she's kind of the one who always does the headphones with the blindfold on. And yeah, we usually have a lot of conversations. We just we're at the Stevenson building and we were doing it. And I was like actually arguing with a ghost. Like I was like, no, it's not true. Yes, it is. No, it's not. I'm telling you it's not. Like we went back and forth and I turned to Alex and go, look at this. I'm arguing with a ghost. And then she goes, ha ha. So it's like, it was so interesting. You know, it's just, this is like open up a whole new world for me.
Yeah, well, maybe you guys, your own energy, your own frequency is somehow lining up with how they can communicate and what frequency they need to use. You know, that might be why it's working so well. So that's awesome. You're lucky. You're lucky. I enjoy using Ghost Box. I don't do too long of a session with it. because it gets to me after a while,
Yeah.
so I usually try and do like 10 minutes, a session. But, you know, eh, out there in the paranormal field, I think ITC, or specifically the ghost box, people either love it or they hate it. And it's just one of those things that you're either into it or you're not. And I figure, because it can be suggestive, and that's kind of a criticism of it. It can be suggestive, or you're asking the right question and you get a non-paranormal response, but it fits what you're looking for. So I get that, but I say, why not? Why not use it? Why not? Because it could, yield some interesting data out of an investigation, like you've been experiencing, like with a full-on conversation. Some of the clips you guys have on your website, there was one, I made note of it because it was like you asked about this closet up there, and I think it was in the Boyd house. I'm not sure, but the response was she was stabbed in it. And
Yes.
I always just find full sentence responses. I think that's pretty amazing. With as fast as, the tool is sweeping across the different radio frequencies to get a full sentence. That's what you're looking for. So I thought that one really stuck out to me. But I haven't done the SS method too much yet, but I'd like to try some more of that and see what happens. It's really interesting. So yeah, you're lucky.
Yeah, and I love the spirit, but we have them all. We have the SP7, the SP11. I have one hack shop job one. I have a portal. We have the S box. Like, we use all of it.
Mhm.
And I just love the science behind it. I know some people balk at it and say it's radio stations, but you can't speak 1/100th of a second. We get swear words on that. That is not on the radio.
I was going to ask if you've been sweared at.
Yes, we've had the F-bomb several times.
Mhm.
I think my favorite way to prove something was we went to a private person's home to investigate. Now, everyone in the family experienced paranormal activity except for the husband.
Okay.
The big father. He's like, this house isn't haunted. There's nothing going on here.
Right.
Even though they live in a historic home. So the
Mhm.
home they lived in belonged to a man named Captain Jenks, who in downtown Stillwater was the riverboat captain of Stillwater. He also owned several businesses. He's a very well prominent person back in the 1900s in that town.
Okay.
So that they lived in his house. So I was running the spirit box, and I always use AM. So you tell me what the odds of this happening is.
Okay.
I said, whose house is it? And plain as day, it said Captain Jenks. So
Nice.
and I changed the husband's total attitude towards ghosts because he was a non-believer. And
Mhm.
just for fun, just so you know that this guy was super smart. Like, he had like 50 different million things after his name, like PhD, professor. There's like all these things. Like, he was very, very well educated man and was
Mhm.
totally not into ghosts. And after I did that and explained how the spirit box went, he was a believer.
That's funny when you can turn people that way.
Yes. So that was super cool. Just, one of those things that you say, like, you can't make that. That's never going to be said on the radio. I mean, what are the oddballs? It's like winning the lottery. Come on.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Well, I'd say you get quite a bit, and that makes me think you're lucky. So you should go buy a lottery ticket.
I do. It doesn't help.
Yeah. Yeah. I tried to get a lottery ticket once and was calling to my spirit guides to help me out. And I felt that they did. I felt numbers were coming through. So I wrote them down and I went and got the lottery ticket. And then I was like one digit off every number.
Oh.
And I took that as a sign of that's not how it works, young man. So don't ask for psychic help to get the lottery numbers. Doesn't work.
Yeah, I've tried it. I've tried that too.
Yeah. So out of all the ITC devices that you use, which one's your favorite so far?
I like the portal because it seems to clean everything up really well.
Okay.
So that's kind of my new thing. But we just got the S box, so I'm kind of liking that one. We've been playing with that one quite a bit too. So
Yeah.
yeah, we kind of I like them all. It's hard to say. I play with all of them because it's like, oh, let's see what this one has.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a SP7, and that's just the one I've always had, and I have some interesting stuff that comes through. Now when you're asking questions, I'm just curious, how you guys do it. When I'm doing an ITC session, I usually will ask for them to say my name along with their answer, so that I know they're talking to me. And a lot of times I will get a response followed with my name, like yes, Pete, no, Pete. Have you guys ever tried that?
Yeah, we've had asked for our names before. We've had our names said a couple times.
Mhm.
Sometimes just to like test things too. I'll be like, how many fingers am I holding up? Or what color is my shirt?
Yes.
Or, things that are like just not going to be randomly. Actually at the Boyd house, it was kind of fun because we have those little kid blocks, that have like numbers and letters on them.
Sure.
And Teresa held up, running the spirit box. She's like, what number's on this block? And it goes 2. And that's what she was holding up.
Ah, nice.
And she's like, oh my God, he said 2. So
Yeah.
excited about that.
Yeah. I like, counting up the people in the room, the living people in the room.
Yep. Yeah.
And then, okay, can you count and tell me how many of us are here to visit you? I like doing that one.
Yeah.
And occasionally I've gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it kind of goes up to the number. And I think that's really cool. Did an investigation in Paulsbo, which is near Port Gamble, so Puget Sound area. And we were doing a spirit box session, and I asked that question, and it gave us one less. It gave us the wrong number. It was one less. But when we went back and looked at, we figured out, somebody stepped out of the room and we didn't see it. So it gave us the right number. So it's kind of one of those after the fact. Oh, it worked.
Yeah.
But we didn't catch it. So what's your favorite data to review after an investigation? Is it video? Is it audio, photographs? What do you like to do?
I like to do all the video work. Plus,
Okay.
I'm fanatic about that. So I think I own like 25 camcorders, but I've kind of scaled it back a little bit now. Like I don't want to spend all that time with so much setup. So I've narrowed it down to like 10. So at a time.
10. Yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah, 10, 12, sometimes I get a little crazy. So I like to do a lot of the video stuff.
Okay.
And then Donna likes to do most of our audio, which is good because I hate it. Like I love it when I find something, but we tend to put out a voice recorder with every camcorder. So again, we could have 25 voice recorders out, and we'll let them run. We're one of those people that let them run the entire time. So you got 15 hours of one voice recorder times 25 is a lot of time listening to headphones.
That is a lot of audio. My goodness.
It is. But you know what? When you get something, it is so worth it.
Yeah.
We even get I think some of my favorite EVPs is we were at like Randolph Infirmary. It was actually just me and Teresa at this huge asylum. There's 2 girls in this huge asylum.
Okay.
But like I got 2 really great class A EVPs there. I was walking down the hall and it was me and Teresa. And of course we didn't hear it at the time, and I wish we had, but it was like an elderly lady said that, well, hello girls, pleased to meet you. Come on in. Like that full sentence. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I had only known, we would have stopped in a room and we just kept walking by. And then the other one with on that same experience that night was in the basement. And that building had burned down, I believe 2 times, maybe 3, but I know 2 times it had burned to the ground twice.
Okay.
And we had like a guy go, the building's on fire, don't you know? So it's like, I don't know if he was like reliving the fire, like trying to tell us like, get out, so it kind of comes to like, oh my gosh, did they keep reliving the same thing over and over? So I haven't got the answer yet to that. But just those two EVPs are just things that really stand out in my mind. That's just like a class A. I didn't have to even, do anything with them. But then you look back and like, oh my God, somebody's looking at us and I didn't even see them there. So,
Right. Well, what's a what's a place that you had an experience with an apparition where you actually saw something?
I myself have not seen a full-blown apparition,
Okay.
but which we were on the biography channel for. We did a local bar down in Stillwater. At the time it was called Pub Monique. They had a lot of ghost activity, a lot of equipment, like their dartboard would turn on, things would fall over, beer bottles would go flying.
Mm-hmm.
They actually had a woman back in the day. She was a prostitute. They threw her out the window. She was killed.
Jeez.
So just kind of a lot of history. Plus, half of downtown Stillwater is haunted anyway. It used to be a lumberjack town, and there was also
Okay.
Native American War. So just a lot of history there. But
Yeah.
we just had come from upstairs. It was really, really hot out. It was like 95 degrees, super humid.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, but there was some air conditioner, but it still wasn't, quite doing the job. But all of a sudden, my investigator, Krista, and I just started getting like the intense goosebumps, like everything changed. And I was
Okay.
I'm just like, oh my God, like, okay, this is kind of crazy. And we both looked over towards the window and we saw like this black, almost like, I don't want to say robed, but it was kind of that way. Almost
Okay.
like, but it kind of went across the windows, and this is on the upstairs floor. So it wasn't like anybody crossing or anything. Plus it was about 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And it just went really fast, almost like a strobe motion. It's just so hard to explain. And it just like went across 3 windows and disappeared. And I looked at her, I go, did you, like just see that? And she's like, yeah. So we saw that, and then what was really cool is that we actually caught that on film as well, seeing that shadow figure go across the window. So that was super cool to validate it later.
Yeah.
That had happened. So that was probably the only time that I've ever really seen something very shadowy. Investigating now, I see like, oh, maybe a thing on the corner of my eye or something, but nothing I can really like pinpoint. Go, this is what I saw.
Yeah. Oh, the old out of the corner of the eye trick. The ghosts spirits are good at that. They like to mess with us that way. Well, that's cool. It's always great when you're investigating and you have an experience and you look at the person that's with you. Did you just experience anything? Yes. What was it? And then say the same thing. That's it's very validating, at least to me.
Yes.
I'm not crazy. I think if we all people who investigate, and like you guys with a team, you'd probably all be millionaires if you had a dime for every time someone said, well, you're going to think I'm crazy, or people think I'm crazy. But now through the pandemic and everything, I've been kind of asking all my guests this. Did you guys feel like you received more calls for investigation or help, or people that were freaked out during the pandemic?
No, we really didn't get any requests or help for anything from any private parties at all. And of course, we kind of halted as far as doing any investigations. And so at that time, it was just my husband and myself going down to the Boyd house. We just kind of kept our distance and stuff, being as some of our investigators have health issues.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't find an increase in that in whatsoever. I think I had a lot more people actually sending me video and things that they caught to question it, to maybe validate what they had captured. I think I got more.
Oh yeah.
More of that kind of stuff. So that was fun to see because I love watching all of people's stuff. So
yeah, well, it sounds like maybe then more people were, they're stuck at home, stuck with each other. What are you going to do? Let's look for ghosts in our house.
Yeah.
A lot of DIY stuff.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah, that's awesome. And I don't usually take, I'll take some video my investigation kit's real basic. I'm also busy. I usually do my own thing, or I'll go with another team and investigate. But I've so far have not caught anything on video. But someday, fingers crossed. Someday, just gotta stay the course. But so tell me a little bit about your team. I mean, are any of you guys use psychic abilities, mediumship? Is anybody, an empath?
Not really. We're just a bunch of fun people. But Donna has the ability. She can see things sometimes, not all the time, but she can sometimes see spirits. I can kind of get a feel when something's around me.
Okay.
But that's probably about it. I don't think anybody else is more of like an empath or can feel anything, or we can't communicate psychically. But I think for some reason, like I know a lot of times when like not everybody can come, I think the energy shifts. So, but for some reason, when we're all together, I don't know what kind of crazy energy we create, but everything's really crazy when we're all together. So it's like one big harmony when we are all together.
You found the right recipe, so that's
yes.
good. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like to me, I mean, it seems like your guys' energy frequency that you have, and that just goes out there. Maybe the combination of all that helps give the other side the energy they need to come through. So that's really cool. Do you guys ever have mediums come with you on investigation? Is there people that you trust that you can have come out and investigate with you?
We have gone investigating one time with one. I didn't really notice much more of an advantage to having her versus not having her.
Okay.
But I know, like when I was working on purchasing the Boyd house, there is one psychic that I really trust that told me quite a few things prior to me purchasing the house that I later found out she was correct. So
nice.
So yeah, I trusted her on that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's cool. I mean, most every team out there seems to have mediums on them, and there's a lot of good that can come from that. And I applaud you guys for just going with what you've got. And you seem to have kind of a good recipe with your team. So is there anybody on the team that's like a hard skeptic?
I would say it's mostly me, because they always come to me and say, "Oh, this happened or that." I'm like, "Well, are you sure it wasn't this?" Or I don't know. So I kind of always I don't want to say poo-poo things off, but I want to make sure it's truly paranormal. So sometimes I feel bad because I don't feel like I get as excited as they do when they're like, "Oh my God, this happened." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. It could have been. Are you sure?"
Yeah.
So that's probably me more than anything.
Well, every team needs a party pooper. Just
That's
kidding.
right.
Every team does need a skeptic, though. It's really important to have someone who's skeptical and can look at things more logically. I try to be that way. I'm not. My head's in the clouds. It's more of when I investigate, I do some audio, I'll take some pictures, maybe a little bit of video, but then my notebook, or I take an audio log on my audio device and I just use myself. So the challenge for me is to be skeptical. And anybody listening out there, if how does it work for you if you're an investigator? Are you a believer like me and the challenge is to be skeptical, or are you the skeptic on your team? If you want to comment, go to WLTK-DB.com and check out the chat function there, or comment on the YouTube feed on our YouTube channel. So where do you fit into your team? I'll just put that out there. Every team's got to have a psychic. So over the years, I just want to get a little bit on how has your approach changed over the years through investigating?
I think, like I said, I think we focus a little bit sometimes on the other side, like what's going on. I think as we have kind of moved on, we developed more of a which we always kind of had, don't get me wrong, but I think we've developed more of a fine-tuned respect for what we're doing and how we
Okay.
treat our spirits. So we don't ask the usual, once in a while if we don't know, like, how did you die? But, say you go to Veliscak's murder house. Well, we don't ask how you died. We all know that you got murdered by an axe, and nobody wants to rehash that.
Sure.
So we kind of show them a lot more respect, and we try to focus more on that spirit's life. Like, hey, what was your favorite thing to do? What was your favorite meal to cook? How was your holidays? What did you like? What was your favorite gift? So these are just things we kind of focus on more, like, what was your life like? That's what I want to focus on. I don't want to focus on your
Right.
death. And so I think we get a lot more responses with that because we're trying to find out more about that particular spirit.
That's an awesome approach. I love that. I totally agree with you on that. And I've always kind of, I had a lot of great people around me when I kind of started doing this, and it's like, what you put out there is what you get back.
Yes.
So, I don't like to, never been an antagonizer or anything like that. And I always just think about, like, if it's like the Walker Ames house here in Port Campbell, it's the most active building here in the town. And when I say town, I mean, like, it's really small, really small town, but it's the most active building here. But I've always treated it as I'm going into somebody else's house. I'm a guest of theirs, and always, talk to them that way. And anywhere I go, really, I try and talk to, whether I'm talking to somebody or not, who knows, but I always try and, let everybody know what I'm doing, why I'm there, the devices I have, what they do, and try and have that kind of respect. And so I love hearing about other teams with that approach too. And I hope more and more as time goes on, more teams will kind of adopt that approach, because a lot of people I've seen investigate, they get a little antagonistic, or especially on a lot of the TV shows, you kind of see that too. Like, where are you? Show yourself, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Not my cup of tea.
No, not ours either. I figure if I'm yelling at you, you probably really don't want to talk to me. So
Right. So I want to talk about some of the places you've been, but the one I want to ask you about is the Egyptian Theater. Is that the one in Boise?
no, I don't remember what town it was. It was in Illinois somewhere. It
Oh,
was
darn.
yeah.
Well, what
Why
was
could
that
I
place?
not
What was that
remember
place
town?
like?
It was pretty cool. Teresa was sitting out in the like theater
Mhm.
seats all by herself, and we were all up in the balcony, and the seat next to her flopped down.
Nice.
So she jumped up and had some choice words to say.
Right.
Yeah, and we got some spirit box responses and stuff. So that was, it was just fun, just a fun place to go.
Yeah.
Beautiful theater too.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask because I'm from Boise, Idaho, and there's an Egyptian theater there. And in my experiences, it's haunted. So I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if she's been to that one. Because it's there's huge statues in there. I mean, it looks like an Egyptian tomb in there.
Mhm.
And it was a 1,600 seat theater when people were smaller. And then as time went on, it made it an 800 seat theater and bigger chairs. But it used to be a 1,600 seat theater, but I used to manage it when it was still a movie theater. And they do lots of different kinds of events now. So I just was hoping it was that one, because I've got tons of experiences and stories from that place. And it was like a nightly affair.
Mhm.
I was used to it. And I know some of my buddies that worked there, we were all just kind of used to it. Like, oh yeah, that's just the ghost walking through like they normally do every night. You know? But what about the Waverly Hills Sanatorium? Tell me a good story you got from there.
We didn't get like a ton of interaction. It was just really mostly the awesomeness of being at that really cool building.
Sure.
Part of ghost hunting too is just going to see some of the old architect and all the old buildings. Is just really phenomenal and awesome. I'm just an old soul, so I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I do know being in the body chute was pretty creepy. I
Okay.
went kind of halfway down and sat by myself on the steps, and I could hear footsteps coming at me. I'm like, no, I don't like this. So I went back up to the top and sat with Donna for the rest of that duration of that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we got some good spirit box responses. We had some REM pods going off when we weren't in the room. But like I just said, not overwhelming, anything that happened to us personally at the time.
Yeah.
But just the experience was pretty awesome.
Nice. Well, other than the Boyd house, what's your favorite place to investigate?
I like Edinburgh Manor in Iowa. It's like an old poor farm. They also was like a drug rehab and then a nursing home. Just
Okay.
lots and lots of death there. You always get something that goes on. I think the thing that haunts me coming back every time is we got there's like a little girl that's there, and we had a lot of interaction with her playing that night in one of the rooms, and we just knew it was her. But I got a Class A EVP when we were done, and we were like getting ready to go to bed. She said, "I'm gonna miss you." So I was like, oh my God. Like, so every time I go back there, I never get her voice anymore. But it's just when you go there, it's always something. Like I've been touched there. We've had doors shut on us. We always get EVPs, you always get REM pods. It's just always something at that place. And it's just, I don't know, I just love it. I just feel comfortable. I feel at home there, which is weird because it's an asylum. You think you wouldn't feel at home there, but I do. I like it there. So
I think there must be a deeper meaning to that.
yes.
That's awesome. When you got touched, what was the sensation? How'd that feel to you?
It was really electrifying. I was sitting in a room where a woman had been raped and murdered, and I was just kind of sitting by a bed, and I would, which we assumed was where she had passed. And I was just like, oh my God, violence against women. This is horrible. I was just kind of saying how sorry I felt for her. And then you just kind of felt like this hand touch on my hand and almost kind of rubbing back and forth, but it was also electrical. It was just the craziest thing. I'm like, oh my God, I think she's touching me, you guys.
Take a picture quick.
Yes. Well, Donna did. Nothing showed up, but
oh, of course, naturally.
But yeah, I definitely, you could totally feel that electrical energy going through. So
nice.
I kind of felt like we had a connection there, and I kind of felt some overwhelming sadness too as she was doing that. So
it sounds like maybe she was kind of trying to comfort you in a sense.
Maybe,
since you were thinking about all the stuff that had gone on in there. And it's almost like she was trying to give you a little comforting touch, and which I think is great. I've only been touched once that I am aware of. That I'd say that I'm aware of that happening, and it was a hug, and at least that's what it felt like to me. And it was from a child, and that stuck with me for a long time. It was real intense. It felt like ice cold Novocaine going around my sides and onto my back. And I've never felt anything like that before.
Yeah.
And I feel energy, but it's mostly through my stomach is how I feel it. Butterflies. Some people call it ghost gas. But, feel it there. So yeah, that's interesting. It sounds like she was maybe trying to give you a little bit of comfort of, from the thoughts you were having. So what's a one place, and it can be, have you ever investigated overseas? You ever been overseas to investigate?
Nope, nothing overseas. Everything's been in the US.
Yeah, man, I want to go over there and just like you mentioned, for the simple fact of checking out the architecture and how things were built. Have you always kind of been into history? Has that been a good, strong subject for you?
Not necessarily like the old history that you learned in school. Anything that I found fascinating, then I'd want to learn about the history. Like I would want to know about Transylvania and Dracula, but
right.
Don't really want to hear about the Civil War. So
right. Yeah, I'm obsessed with Civil War. maybe I was a Civil War soldier in a past life or something.
Yeah.
I don't know, but ever since
I mean,
as a
I know some because obviously, there's the hauntings of Gettysburg and all that. So that
sure,
intrigues you. But I mean, as
yeah,
far as like learning more about it,
yeah.
um, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, no, I like to look at how things are built, and they don't make buildings like they used to. That's for sure.
no, for sure, no, they last way longer. That's totally for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So what's I was gonna say overseas or stateside. What's one place that you're, sorry for the pun, dying to go to, but haven't investigated yet?
I want to go to the old South Pittsburgh Hospital in Tennessee. That's like on my bucket list, big time. So
Right.
it's a
Yeah.
long drive. It's like I think 14 hours for us. So, uh, because it's really hard to fly. I know people have done
Yeah.
it, but I really don't want to explain to TSA what a REM pod is. So,
Yeah. Trust me, it's not what you're thinking it is. Yeah, I'm sure that'll go over real well. Now, is that one where it was like they had thousands of people in there, and only it was like 100 staff? I'm trying to think if I've read up on this place before or
yeah,
not.
here's what I do. I don't know a whole lot about stuff except I know it's haunted. And then when I'm going to go there, then I do all the major research.
That's
But I
great
do,
though.
yeah, but I do know that it was an old hospital and it's like super cool and I just want to go there. So
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of, there's a lot of places people talk about, all kinds of different places, and I don't really know anything about it. And I kind of prefer to keep it that way. Unless I've gone there to do an investigation, or and then I look stuff up. I investigate differently. I go from the psychic standpoint. So I try not to learn information before going to the place. So I think that's a great for you, because you don't have so much bias when you're going into that place, right?
yeah, and before we go, I like to learn a little bit.
Mhm.
Just kind of like, oh, the hot spot seems to be this room, so that I don't necessarily focus on that room, but it kind of gives me like a little bit of a play
Sure. Yeah.
on that room. Because I kind of learned through just doing investigations not to go off of what everybody else is saying or doing, because that might really not but what's be going on. But
Right.
it's kind of a good base point for you to start with.
Right. You got to learn where you need to set your equipment up.
Right. I
Where's
kind
the
of go with whatever feels good. Like if we get a tour, as we walk
Mhm.
around, I'm like, that's a good spot. That's a good spot. Gonna put something there. So this kind of go with by feel a lot of times too.
There you go. You're using psychic abilities and you don't even know it. Don't even know it. That's awesome. Well, so let's talk a little bit about a lot about the Boyd House. I want to get into that. We're into the second hour here. And so I want to get into the Boyd House, everything about it. What drew you to it? How, were you investigating there first, and then, what drove you to purchase the place? And just tell us about the Boyd House, what your take on the Boyd House is, and then we'll get into a little bit of the history of the place.
Yeah, well, just kind of traveling all around kind of gave me an idea of like, gosh, it'd be really cool to have your own place, to do research and allow other people to do it. So I just kind of started looking on my own, on the MLS, kind of put my criteria in. And
Is
the
there
Boyd
is
House,
there a is there a criteria for haunted?
yeah, it would really make it way easier, let me tell you, because I traveled, up north, down south to all these houses that weren't haunted, but I kind of was looking, like I'd look at them and I'm like, well, that's kind of got a creepy vibe to it. That looks like it's got a creepy feel. And so
Uh,
that's what I would go look at. And when I was looking, actually, the realtors all knew I wanted it to be haunted. So I would be doing these mini investigations at these houses. But for some reason, the Boyd House, I got really drawn to it. Like even before I went there, I kept looking at the pictures. I was just like really drawn to it. It had really cool, just woodwork, just everything about it. I'm just like, oh my
yeah.
God, I just love this house. And then when we went there, Donna and I did, and the realtor was running late. So we're just sitting outside in the car. And we kind of have a thing where we don't say anything right away. If you're feeling something or getting a vibe, you want to see if anyone says anything else.
Right.
And I just said, Donna, you kind of feel like someone's looking at you. She goes, yeah, from the attic. I go, yep. So it's like, so we kind of just had that vibe that somebody was looking at you.
Mhm.
And then when we had gone there, we got a couple good spirit box responses. One was a woman, like she said, "Who are you?"
Okay.
You know, kind of wondering because nobody's really ever talked to her. So this is kind of an oddball thing.
Right.
And then the REM pods started going off within like 8 minutes of me having it there in one particular room. So I was kind of like, okay, well, I got some stuff. Is that like really haunted? I mean, like, does that warrant buying this house? So I contacted a psychic that I really, really trusted. And she said, oh gosh, yeah. She's like, there's a man who gardens in the back and he comes in the back door. And the first night you stay there, you'll hear him, which ironically, I hadn't even made an offer on the house. So for her to say the first night, and we'll circle back to that because something did happen the first night I stayed there.
Okay.
And she just said that there's a man there, there's a woman there, and there's a couple of children there. And as we have done some more research, we have found a lot of this to be true. And
Right.
then I was like, okay, so now I got these couple things on the back burner. How about we ask the owners, like, what's going on? They lived there a long time. Maybe they've had something. They were really reluctant. They were old, you know, they had a family, they raised a family there, but they were older couple at the time. So they're like, oh gosh, you know, not a whole lot, but FYI, I thought this house was always funny. And I heard old time music and my kids saw a couple of things, you know, and it's like, but then as time have gone, now that I've purchased it and talking to some of the kids that have grown up there, they've had all kinds of crazy experiences at the house. So
now it all comes out.
now things are starting to come unraveled and come out in the open. So yeah, with that, I went forward and purchased the White House.
Well, congratulations on that. That's really cool. And I think you found it psychically.
Yes, probably. I do kind of have this drawing thing.
Mhm.
You know, so yeah, but I love the house. I still love the house. So
Yeah, I mean, the layout of it looks really cool. It's kind of like gosh, it makes me kind of think of like an old West hotel.
yeah,
Like the
kind
way,
of.
you know,
Yep.
the way the hallways are and stuff. It kind of looks like it's got like a hotel feel to it.
Yeah, yeah. And it was built in 1901.
Mhm.
But the deed goes back to 1884 when it was
Okay.
actually the land was actually owned by the railroad. And the tracks actually run pretty much right outside the backyard of the house. So when it comes through, it shakes the whole house.
Is there
But
still active rail lines? They're still using
yes,
it? Oh my
yes,
God.
they do. Yes. And one day I was lucky, I was there with my camera. I'm like, oh, here comes a train. And I ran out there and filmed it all of a sudden.
Well,
But
that'll stir something up, I'm sure.
it will. But then the town, they had a guy back in the 1900s actually got killed on the railroad tracks.
Oh, that
Right by there too.
right there. Okay.
Yeah, they just found him there. Nobody really knows what the heck happened to him. But
Interesting.
yeah, the butcher used to butcher the cows out by the tracks too. So it's like, I know it's crazy. But the town was a booming town back in the early 1900s. It was like 500 people, which was a huge town back then.
Yeah,
They
totally.
had like hotels and they had bars and just everything, barber shop, 3 grocery stores, and just everything you could think of. And then now it's pretty much a ghost town when there's like 150 people left in town and maybe like 3 or 4 businesses still standing.
Okay.
So just a lot of history. So a lot of Wild West activity. I have pictures of them, with the horse-drawn wagons, the cowboys,
Yeah.
everything. And then it was located right on the border of the Sioux Dakota reservation line. So you can
Okay.
just imagine what kind of stuff. And there was a war in the 1800s with the Native Americans there as
Yeah.
well. So there was just a lot of lot of death, a lot of
lot
history.
of lot of death energy. Yeah.
Yes.
So what was did you say it was lumberjacks, or what was kind of the industry there other than the rail lines? Was it timber? What
It
was
was
kind of the?
mostly like they did flour,
Okay.
grains, that type of thing.
Yeah. So they
So
had mills and stuff there.
mills and stuff. Yeah, it was mostly a farming type community.
Okay.
Even right now, it's like you have to drive through fields and fields of corn and then plop the town down and then more fields of corn. So that's kind of where it is right now.
Yeah. 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 The town I'm in, if you're not familiar, it was a sawmill town. So it was all centered around timber. And I think in the town's heyday, I think there was upwards of 800 to 900 people. And now there's about 80 of us that live here, maybe a little less than that. So there's a general store, and there used to be a hotel, and so it's kind of fun hearing about these other old towns, little towns. So tell me a little bit about the original owners, and if you've had any experiences where you've got validation from knowing who these people were and their names. Have you ever gotten any validation there?
Yeah, the main owners, I mean, like I said, the D goes back way, way, way back. But in 1912, Fred and Minnie Eckert took over the home with their children. And both Fred and Minnie died in the house. And Minnie's funeral was held in the home for
Okay.
3 days. In front of
Wow.
those big bay windows, which before I found out, I'm like, I just know this is where something happened. Like, that's where they held funerals, in the octagon type shaped windows.
Mhm.
And then later to find out, for 3 days, Minnie's body was there.
Yeah.
So those two died there, and also two of their children passed away. One choked to death when he was about 3 years old. And then the other one died in infancy. And then
Oh.
we also do know that a lady named Anna in the 70s died. So those are the confirmed deaths that we have in the home. But we do get a lot of stuff pointing with Fred and Minnie as well. So we get a lot of EVPs that say Fred's coming was the EVP
Okay.
that I really get. I get a lot of responses on the spirit box, like, what's your name, Fred?
Mhm.
So just recently, I had contacted the grandson and their last name was Eckert, so Fred and Minnie Eckert. So I
Mhm.
contacted the grandson, and like one of the stories he told me is like, oh, my grandma fell down the stairs and broke her arm. So then I was asking on Spirit Box, I'm like, who fell down and broke their arm? And then I heard plain as day, Minnie.
Oh,
So it's
jeez.
like, so it's just
Wow.
things that validate. I've asked questions about the town.
Mhm.
Like I said, who ran the newspaper? Well, back in the day, it was a man named Anthony Nibblelink, but for short, everybody called him Nib. And on the spirit
Okay.
box, I heard Nib when I asked who ran the spirit box or who ran the paper. And then my favorite spirit box response out of that is I have Fred and Minnie's wedding picture hanging in the bedroom.
Okay.
And I was running a spirit box, and I pointed to the picture and I said, is anybody here, anybody in that picture on the wall? And I pointed to the picture, and it said, plain as day, do you mean the Eckerts? So it's like, I'm just like, oh my God, like you will not
Wow.
hear this on the radio, people. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, those are some really cool responses that point to Fred and Minnie, and other paranormal groups have gotten stuff pointing the same way too. So we do know
Okay.
um that he is there. I did find out Fred was a big gardener, which brings us back to what I said that
Oh,
the
yeah.
psychic said, that you would see him now. So there's somebody in the neighborhood who can see spirits, and she's like, oh yeah, I see a man out in your yard, he just comes in through the back door all the time. And I had never told her what the psychic had said, but for her to correlate that,
Right.
tell me the same story, and then the first night that I stayed there, I was like, oh, I wonder what's gonna happen. She said something's gonna happen, and nothing was going on, nothing. So I was kind of getting disappointed, going, oh man. And as I was coming through, so the basement door, you go down a few steps and there's another door to go outside, but that one's like
Mhm.
double sealed. There's no airflow coming through it.
Okay.
Um, But when I was walking by the basement door, all of a sudden I heard this bam, 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 like somebody was shaking my basement door. Like I jumped like 10 feet because I was not expecting this to happen. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then I tried to debunk it. And there, like I said, there's no airflow.
Mhm.
Even me shaking it doesn't, you had to like make the fist pounding on the door to make that sound. So I don't know,
Wow.
maybe he liked the door normally open because I like to keep it closed.
Mhm.
But yeah, just that was like, okay, well, something happened. So he was coming
Yeah.
through the back door, I guess. So
Yeah, it was coming in, and the psychic was right. That's
yes.
really cool. That's really, have you so do you live there full time?
No, I don't live there full time. Yeah, I just kind of like rent it out for people to come down and do paranormal investigations, and I get down there in between time as much as I can to. Usually, I'm really busy working. I
Mhm.
didn't realize when you buy it that you have a lot of work to do. So so yeah, so usually when I show up, actually, it was kind of funny. We were doing a lot of renovations when we first got it. Painting wallpaper. I'm trying to bring it back to the 1900s. So all the stuff we have in there furniture wise is all antique type stuff. So Lord knows what else I brought into the house.
Really cool.
But yeah, I think on the spirit box one time we had been doing a lot of painting, and the spirit box said, "Are you the guys that paint?" I'm like, "Really? Is this what you think of us? We're the character? Come on now." So
You missed a spot, or
yes.
yeah, or you get like a Tom Sawyer Huckleberry Finn joke thrown at you.
Yes.
Let me know if you ever get that. That'd be hilarious. Um, so what's been like, I mean, have you felt unwelcome ever in there, or has it felt more like open arms to you?
I never felt any negativity. I've had a few people have some negative experiences.
Mhm.
It was a little standoffish in the beginning, but I think they didn't really know, like, okay, why is this girl talking to us? Nobody ever talked to us before, you know?
Yeah.
So we kind of took a little bit to get going. At first I'm
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, nothing's going on. Did I make a mistake? Did I buy a
Mhm.
house that's really not haunted?
It's a
But we
lemon.
Yes, it's like, can I return this? So but it took a little bit to go, and I would, and because you go to other places that have been investigated 110 times, they start to know what a REM pod is. They start to know, what they need to touch to make it work. These spirits have never been communicated with. They didn't even know what I had going on.
Sure.
So I spent a lot of time explaining what I was doing, what this was. And I think kind of one of my breakthroughs was I think I was kind of like, oh my God, what have I done? But I was in the kids' room and I had like a REM pod bear. And I just said, look, you just got to show me you're here and I will bring you more toys and people will bring you more toys. You just got to let me know that you're here. Just
Yeah.
touch this bear. And then it went off for 3 hours.
Holy smokes.
So then after that, we kind of had a little understanding. So yeah, I think
Mhm.
we've kind of talked a lot. When I'm there, I just kind of ramble on about my day.
Yeah.
I've had an EVP where one day I was just rambling on like, hey, I'm going to a wedding. You ever been to a wedding? And like I was like nonstop chitter chatter that day, and I was the only one in the house. And I got this EVP. We do have a woman. She's really raspy voice. She's crabby. We get a lot of get out, leave me alone, get it. She's just crabby.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I was kind of talking, so under my breath, um you heard her voice, so it was like blah, blah, blah. I couldn't hear because I was talking, but then I stopped and you heard, I'm trying to sleep. So it's like she's probably like, shut up, lady. So that was like one of my favorite EVPs I got. But I know I sent you a couple.
Mhm.
So I got like one of the little boys. So the psychic had told me that he tends to hide a lot in closets and stay away from people.
Okay.
And there was a particular one where he was in the closet and I happened to open the door to that closet, and then I heard him say, well, I didn't hear him at the time, but
Sure.
on the EVP, we heard him say, "Don't hurt me."
Yeah. Well, let's hear that real quick. That's file number 1 there. Let's listen to it a couple times and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. So I can clearly hear that. Anybody listening out there too, if you heard it and get an impression, go ahead and comment. So, and you felt that was a younger male spirit.
Yeah, I think that's the little boy who hides in closets. I've also gotten like EVPs of him saying hide.
Mhm.
He tends to, I think, be a little bit more shy. Another EVP, which I think is the same voice to me that I sent to you.
Mhm.
That we were doing a spirit box session, and when we got done with it and turned it off, you heard him say game over. So it's like we were playing a game,
Mhm.
and he's like, oh, now it's over. So
Oh, geez.
that we got that one, but to me it sounds like the same voice.
Okay. Well, we're going to take our last station break here, 20 past the hour. And when we come back, we're going to listen to that EVP, Game Over, and then we'll talk more about that. But you're listening to the Paranormal Pete Show with guest Jill Shelley from St. Croix Paranormal and the Boyd House. And we're here on Let's Talk Radio. We'll be right back after we pay the station bills with a break.
Patreon is a place for creators. We're one of them. Visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/WLTK-DB. Check out all the unique support tiers we offer. You can get early release episodes, station mugs and t-shirts, free station service work, and much more. Help the station reach its $1,000 per month goal to make our station totally ad-free. Patreon.com/WLTK-DB. We appreciate your support. A book of mystery, a book of one man's journey, a book of the afterlife, a book you must read. Ghost and Me by 5-time award-winning author Kevin Killen is a book of one man's journey in the search of the afterlife. Read of his chilling childhood experience, his investigative journeys, and his opinions of paranormal activity. Ghost and Me by Kevin Killen, an Ozark Mountain publication. Get your copy today online or wherever books are sold.
Well, they say that you're a fool. You believe in magic.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Pete Show. We're on Let's Talk Radio, WLTK-DB.com. And we're talking with Jill Shelley from St. Croix Paranormal and the Boyd House, which she has purchased. I wasn't sure if you lived there full time or not, but I don't know if I could, to be honest with you. But welcome back, and thanks everybody for listening out there. So before the break, we were talking about a boy spirit, and we played one EVP. And so let's hear file number 2, where he says game over. And you felt that it was the same voice. So let's check it out.
This one, the right one, like I'm on you. Game over.
Yeah.
Where do you want me to go?
Oh, I want you to wave your arm.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to get out of the chair.
I don't know if I have this one, the right one, like I'm on you. Game over.
Yeah. Where do you want me to go?
Oh, I want you to wave your arm.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to get out of the chair.
So yeah, I mean, I could pick that out pretty easy. And what's your take on it?
Well, like I said, we were running a spirit box and we were done with that. I think that was a fun game for them to
Okay.
answer questions.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, we turned it off and now it was over with. So that's what I feel like that stemmed from.
So after listening to that, I would tend to agree with you. The voice does sound similar to the first one we heard. It's kind of got that same timbre to the voice. Is that somebody who comes through often with other investigators?
I haven't heard anybody else send me the EVPs. I do tend to get a lot of the same whispery type
Mhm.
sounds. Very interesting that we have the lady with the really raspy voice. To me, she always sounds like she smokes like 100 cigarettes a day. So I
Nice.
get her voice similar a lot, but she tends to be the one that doesn't want to tell me what her name is.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, she's the crabby one.
Ah,
But it is
crabby lady.
interesting that you get some of the same voices.
Mhm.
some of the sometimes the same names.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the fun thing about, having your own place versus like when you go to places, sometimes you only get it, for that 8-hour span and you can only collect so much evidence. So going back, I can be like, oh, so now I got this name. So let me work off of that and see what
Right.
else I can find
Yeah.
with that information.
Yeah. You can almost just keep building on your previous investigation.
Right. And
Almost,
then
right?
when
Yeah.
other teams send me stuff too, I go off of that. Like if they get a name, I
Mhm.
kind of work with that and I kind of work, sometimes I like tell them like, oh, Joe was here last week and I saw in the video that you touched the REM pod. That was super awesome. So I kind of like, tell them, like, hey, I saw what was going on and they really appreciated that. And or I'll say, hey, this is who's coming next weekend. You need to amp it up or,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. Has any of the spirits in the home, have they ever said, like, addressed you by your name?
Yeah, I've heard on the spirit box. And then I think one of my favorite in EVPs, it was maybe the third or fourth paranormal group had come in. So I think this was all new to them because first it was always just me because we
Mhm.
were renovating and then we were the only one investigating. And I was telling them
Mhm.
people are going to come now because they want to talk to you kind of thing. So I think it was, like I said, the third or fourth group that had come in and they had just kind of got there and kind of got things underway and they got an EVP that said, where's Jill?
Huh.
So it's like, I think they were like, okay, where is she now? She's not here. So I
Mhm.
think it was just a little bit different for them. So that was, and I was like, oh, they miss me. So I was like,
How do you take that, right? Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, you could take it a couple of different ways. That's awesome. I think that's really cool. It sounds like you've really kind of taken the time to build a rapport with the non-breathing inhabitants of the house. I think that's really important, especially in a place that you go to often, and not everybody owns a haunted house, and you have your own lab, which I think is cool. The house behind me, if you're watching the video, that one's kind of my lab, the Walker Ames house, although I don't live there. I don't know if my family would all want to live in there. But it sounds like you've really taken the time to build that rapport. And when they call you by name, I think that's just one of the coolest things. I've experienced that myself here in Port Gamble, where other teams are investigating and they get either through Spirit Box or through EVP or even disembodied voices, where's Pete? Where's Pete? And they'll get it multiple times throughout the evening. And it just kind of makes me feel like, oh, they like me. At least I'll think that.
Yes.
that they like me. Well, I wanted to ask about, so there's a piano in there, and you had a couple of clips on the website where there's a note playing. Have you ever been there when you've experienced, like, you heard the notes on the piano?
I have not been there when we've heard the notes on the piano. It's something you catch later. I've had other investigators have different equipment on there, whether it's a K2 or something of that type of device, REM pods, whatever, will go off on that piano. So we've had that. I bought in like an old fashioned music book, so I put that up there. I don't know if that's what they're trying to play, but it's up there for them. So
That's awesome. I think that's the music parts. It's a fascinating aspect to the paranormal to me. Have you ever tried to play music from the period during an investigation and see what happens?
oh yeah, we do that all the time. And ironically, that you bring that up, is we had purchased or we were given for a friend of mine a Victrola.
Awesome.
So we
That's
put
cool.
that in there and we were playing like Victrola music and we're running the SLS camera. And I was just like, hey, come on down. We're having a dance party. We're playing like all this old school stuff. And I'm just kind of scanning the room with the SLS. And all of a sudden, the stick figure shows up in the corner and it's just standing there. And I was like, oh, hey, welcome. And then all of a sudden it started like moving its arm and leg to the beat of the music that was going on. And I'm like, oh
Nice.
my God, this is like crazy. So then, and then eventually it moved to the chair, and then it was just moving its arm to the beat of the music that was playing.
Okay.
And so that was cool. So then we're like, okay, after a while, you're like, hey, I'm done playing music, done, over with it. We move on, we go into another room, and I'm like, oh, hey, I forgot this thing here. And mind you, now at this point, I have the light on, so it's not even in the dark. But I
Okay.
went over back to where the Victrola was. The camera was still aimed there. And all of a sudden, there's a stick figure at the Victrola. We had taken the crank out because I didn't want people playing with it.
Mhm.
And it was like moving back and forth, like trying to find the crank. Then it would come up top and look at the record. Then it would bend down back, look where the crank should have been, and then come
Oh.
back up. And I'm like, oh my, I think they still want us to play. So
Oh my goodness.
that was pretty cool to see that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's you got to wonder, are they looking at it going, why the hell is this not working?
Yes, we want more music. Yeah. So
Yeah. Do you ever get like toilets flushing, things like that?
I have not had that. I've had some investigators come and they'll come back and find the kitchen faucet on or one of the bathroom lights turned on.
Mhm.
I've had the attic door left open. I've had people say that too, but I know me and my husband, when they're doing some cleaning up before we left, I walked out of the kids' bedroom and the attic door's open. And I'm like, Justin, did you open the attic door? Nope, did not. So I went back and I shut it. And you really have to pull on it because I always try to debunk things. Is it not shutting properly? Is it not?
Mhm.
And it's yeah, you have to turn the knob to open it. So
Nice. Now, is the attic an active space in the house?
every
it looks
room's
like
active in our house.
okay.
And it,
Well,
it just kind of varies on the day, like where they want to be. But yeah, we definitely get some stuff in the attic. I've had good
Mhm.
spirit box response. I've had K2s up there, REM pods. I've had people get touched up there.
Mhm.
Good spirit box responses. Like I think one of my favorite spirit box responses up there. I said, "Who's up here and what's your name?" And it said, "Luke, I'm 8." So like gave me the
Jeez.
name and he was 8 years old. So I was like, okay.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah, so that was an interesting spirit box response. But yeah, it just depends on the day where you're gonna get
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Well, and I'm also curious too, listening to your stories and your experiences, sounds like there's a lot of the activity, or the majority of it is, I guess you call it an intelligent haunting, or it's aware of you. It's called you by name. It's aware of who they are and what state they're in to us. Is there any instances of something that's like a broken record player, where it's this, a repeat of a piece of history? Is there anything, some people call it residual? Is there anything like that going on in the house?
I have not noticed residual because everything happens at different times. So you can't say, oh, footsteps always are at this time.
Mhm.
I've heard disembodied voices at all hour, middle, first thing in the morning, middle of the night, just kind
Mhm.
of, there's no rhyme or reason as to what's going on
Yeah.
in our house. I don't think anything residual. A lot of it, I think, is intelligent. Just based on responses of like, they can name my shirt, they can talk about what's going on.
Yeah.
Just kind of that kind of thing, which is kind of creepy that, they're watching you. But I know, like one of my favorite things I did for them is I played, they like to play card games in the basement. Apparently we
Okay.
found this out. So just off one card game, and then now everybody plays card games, and then they respond, a lot with the K2 meters or REM pods or whatever it is that you have. Like they love to play
Mhm.
cards in the basement. And I had set up a poker game for them. And I
Okay.
put all these old fashioned coins out, from the 1900s, and then one big fat gold coin. I'm like, this is the grand prize, right here. And I'd like shuffle the cards, and I would go down like throughout the night, reshuffle the cards, talk to them like, hey, 21, jokers are wild. Like, I really don't know anything about cards. I'm just, throwing out card lingo. And,
Right.
so, but I had one card right on the edge of the table at all times, like not hanging over the edge, just right to the edge. And I always said, hey, if you're enjoying tonight's card game, just throw this card off. It'd be super awesome. So I know you've had fun tonight. And then at midnight, they threw that card right off the table. So
Oh, wow.
that was pretty cool to have that done. And then also the REM pod that I had on the table had gone off on and off for like 6 hours prior to that. Like, and every time I
Jeez.
come down there, it would like stop, like, oh no, we weren't touching it, you know. And it's
Yeah.
like, you know, so
That's awesome.
yeah. And then now I've actually seen teams play 21, and now you can play. They like to play 21 with the K2. Like they'll tell you when they want to hit, when they don't want to hit, and they're dead on with the game. It's crazy.
Oh man. I gotta get over there sometime. It's really impressive, the interaction. I think that's fairly unique. You know, and I'm going back and thinking about the previous owners. It's, you know, I bet the experiences they were having is the spirits were trying to get their attention because they wanted to interact with them. And, you know, would you agree with that?
Well, I think they kind of came to understanding, like, hey, don't mess with us. We won't mess with you.
Okay.
But they occasionally would see him. Like I said, they would hear music. They just had weird stuff happen throughout the
Okay.
house that they just kind of blew off, as if nothing. So they kind of
Mhm.
like, I don't bother you, you don't bother me kind of scenario. But
Yeah.
every once in a while, you're going to see us. So
Yeah. Okay.
that's kind of what they kind of experienced. So yeah, but then we kind of found out people like who slept over, or even just, you know, whatever they would have an experience. Like we get a lot of people that get touched at night
Mhm.
when they're sleeping. We hear
Mhm.
that a lot. And I found out that people back in the day with the old owners, if they were sleeping over, they would get touched. You know, maybe because they're new when they don't know who they are, you know, not in a bad way, like their feet would be touched or tap on the shoulder, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So
Kind of like a,
um,
hey, who are you? Why are you here?
exactly. Yes. Yes. So yeah, we've had that happen. I've had my shirt pulled,
Mhm.
you know, like the back of like a tug, you know, I don't know if it's a kid like, hey, you know, so yeah,
Yeah.
just tons of different experiences at the house.
Yeah. And would you say though, even with all the different kinds of experiences, um, would you say that it's like it's the same group of spirits, it's the same people that you're kind of always getting?
For a majority, but then we get a lot of different names. I think we get a lot of passerbyers just because of the energy from the railroad, and just kind of what's going on through town. And I think just in general, what we're doing, you know,
Mhm.
we are open, we are creating a beacon, we are creating an energy
Right.
flow. So I think, you know, we get some of that. Um, I do buy some, you know, whether it's true or not, but some of the like dolls I have there are supposedly haunted. Now, whether they are or not, I don't know if that comes with it. You know, we get a
Mhm.
lot of antique things. The other thing I've ever had correlated is I have a doll there that her name was Lisa, that she's a 16-year-old girl. And somebody did get an EVP when they said, what's your name? They got Lisa. So whether or
Okay.
not that's really true or not, I don't know.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just kind of bring things into the house just to see what the heck will happen. So
Sure. Right. Yeah. So, and things could always come with objects, you know,
right.
it's just how it is. Or that object is a beacon for somebody and they come visit it every once in a while.
Right.
Yeah, I was just curious if you have I don't know if this is the best term for vagrant spirits that kind of come and go.
Mm.
So it sounds like you might have a little bit of that. But so the man that people wake up and see him sitting there staring at them, that happens in the Boyd house, right?
Yeah, it does. I have a feeling that's Fred. I've had several people say
Okay.
that they've seen a man in the
Mhm.
house is looking at him, and I'm pretty sure, you know, just based on his history for, you know, like he died there, but because
Right.
he seemed to have such a love for his business and a love for his house and a love for his family is
Mhm.
why I feel that he continues to be there. And I
Yeah.
believe he's there by choice, not
Mhm.
by anything tragic. I think that's just where he chooses to be.
Right.
And same with his wife, and I'm not sure if the children for sure are her children. I don't think so, because we have a girl child and she seems to be a little bit older when I know that their child who died was like about 3.
Okay.
So I mean, we do get some of that activity too.
Mhm.
Because I've heard a little boy named Jacob, but that I know that's not the name of their child.
Yeah.
So it's just like we just get different things, and I don't. I mean, you don't know what happened on that land. Nobody kept records of that kind of stuff back in the day.
Exactly.
So, so yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's just and like I say, creating that beacon. I think just doing what we do creates
Yeah.
some sort of energy as well.
Is there like a local museum in the area?
Not a local museum. We do probably about a half hour away is the Madison, which has like all the history and all the information where we've gotten quite a bit. We need to go back more. When we went the first time, we just kind of had dug up history about Boyd and the town. At the time I didn't have the deed, so I didn't know names. And now that I know names, I need to get back there and get a little bit more research. I do know quite
Yeah.
a lot more about the Eckert family, but I want to know more about the people who owned it prior to that.
Okay.
So
Has the
just
name?
kinda-
Yeah. No. Yeah. Get more on who was there before. Has the name Earl ever come up,
not that I know of, no.
or Merle, something like that? Just curious.
No.
Okay.
Nope, not that I know of. I get the name Henry a couple of times, but I don't know, like he doesn't correlate on my deed. Like I've had that name several times. He likes fudge. I know that. I've brought
Okay.
I've brought him fudge. But he doesn't correlate to anything to that. I've actually had a psychic say, "Oh, there's a lady here and her husband's name is Henry." I've gotten Henry on the spirit box several times.
Interesting.
But I don't know who the guy is. So
Maybe he was a family friend or something,
it could
or
be.
someone
It
that,
could be.
yeah, someone that visited often. Yeah, and I was just wondering about a museum, like if there was anything from Fred and Minnie and the Eckerts that you could possibly get on loan and bring it to the house and see what happens.
Well, we do actually have a chair and a bench. Now it's unclear if it belonged to the Eckert family. Now the the grandson says yes, this was theirs, but then somebody who sold it to somebody, blah blah blah, down the line said no, that belonged to the Just family who used to live there. Either way, I brought it back. So
Yeah.
at some point,
Either way,
it was
yeah.
original to the house to one of the owners.
Mhm.
So I did bring that back into the house. So that was pretty cool. We
Yeah.
actually have that kind of by the stairwell where it used to be. And actually I kind of from that area, and I had sent you the last EVP on that one. We had actually put a Christmas tree up in that section
Okay.
during the holidays that time. And we actually had gotten quite a few EVPs while my husband was setting it up. We made sure it was quiet while we were setting it up. But we were just kind of walking and just kind of being there. And we just kind of heard somebody in a really robotic voice say, "You can build it." So that was kind of interesting.
So you heard that one when it happened.
We didn't hear that one. It was on the EVPs
Oh,
afterwards, but
okay.
it kind of
Okay.
made me sound like maybe the kids were saying like, "Hey, how do you put this tree up?" Because I'm sure they probably use real trees and we had an artificial. So
Right.
they're probably like, he's probably like, "Well, yeah, you can build it now." So it's like, so that was
Yeah.
a really cool one.
Okay. Well, let's take a listen to that clip number 3, and then we'll talk a little bit more on the other side. Well, that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like a middle-aged guy, to a little bit older to me. Who do you think that is?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it's Fred. I think
Okay.
he was just explaining what was going on. We get a lot of activity on that stairwell, a lot of REM pods.
Okay.
Even that particular same night, we were coming down that stairwell the same night we put up the Christmas tree, and we got an EVP that said, "Careful," like they didn't want us to fall down the stairs.
Well, that's
Um,
nice.
so we kind of got that, and a lot of people see things peeking off of there. And my husband, who isn't into ghost hunting, bless his heart, he's really just there to kind of support me and that kind of thing. So I wouldn't say he's like a firm believer, but he loves seeing the stuff that
Mhm.
I show him, and so he's without a doubt he knows that there's ghosts, but he's
Mhm.
not one to see things. But he was coming in through the front door carrying a bunch of stuff, and he looked up on the stairs, and it was just for a flash, he said, that he saw a woman standing there with like a white outfit with long brown hair. And he said, for a split second, I thought it was you, but then you came in the other door. Um, so he was like, but it was so fast,
Mhm.
so he's like kind of convinced, like, no, I didn't see anything. I'm like, yeah, because you randomly see dead people on the stairs. So
Yeah. That's just a thing.
yeah, so he's actually seen a full-blown apparition in that house, which I was super jealous of. But
Right? It always happens to those people.
yes, exactly. So
Well,
yeah,
and
so
I would say that your husband also made it an official ghost house to see a lady in white, right? That's the one
right.
you always hear about is the lady.
Yes.
You're not official until you have the lady in white.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, that's awesome. So well, let's branch out a little bit, and in all the places you've been, what's been like your most successful class A capture that you've gotten? I know this is probably, you have to think about it. Like the most active audio place that you've been to.
I would say the most active audio place would be the Velisca Axe Murder House.
Okay.
We went there, so we've been there twice. Not as much happened on the second time, but the first time we went, we had so many EVPs of the children. And
Wow.
so one of the children that have died, her name was Lena.
Mhm.
And so we would get, like, I think his name was Boyd, if I'm not incorrect. Anyway, he said, like, no, Lena, no, like she was gonna do something. We had the children actually talking that says you want to play, and the other one says no way. And
Jeez.
we have another one that, like, we had all these toys out for him, and we got this place that says, I want to touch your things. And we walked in and we're like, hello, is anyone home? And we got an EVP that says, we're right here. So it's just like all the children interacting and talking for that EVPs were just so phenomenal. And I never caught two of them talking to each other with the, you want to play, no way.
Mhm.
Was just so amazing to have that happen. It was just craziness.
Yeah, and to have a call and response, the conversation. I think that's amazing. When I've this is always how it works for me, is I'll hear a conversation and I believe it to be disembodied, so I feel like I'm hearing it with my ears, and then I realize I don't have audio going. That's how it always goes. Does that happen to you too?
Yes, and it's like, oh, the camera's not working. Why did it die? So it's like, yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah.
always how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a few years ago, I realized, oh, I should turn my audio on before I go in to a location, and I should turn it off when I close the door and leave. Because there's been times here in my lab, the Walker Ames house, where you're just turning everything off, and you're putting the last little bit away, and you're getting ready to turn the lights out, and you hear somebody go, hello, from upstairs or something. It's like, damn it, every time. So you just got to leave it on the whole time. Have you felt like in the places you've gone, and kind of what's your process, or if you have one, have you ever felt like anything's followed you home?
I have personally never had anything follow me home. I usually do like a little closing prayer that I say to myself, just to kind of keep things off me. I've had Donna's had like a cowboy follow her home. Like she woke up in the middle of the night and there's like this cowboy standing at the edge of her bed.
Nice.
After I can't quote, but I think it was after we went to Edinburgh Manor. Alex at that time lived in an apartment. He's never had a problem in his life. His dog started going mental. Faucets started turning on and off. Just lights started turning off, and he like saged his apartment. Everything was fine after that. But yeah, Teresa's had some stuff too, where some doors will start opening and closing.
Yeah.
So and I always ask, did you say a prayer? And they're like, I don't know if I did or not. So we can never guarantee that, but they have had stuff. I personally have not had anything. Luckily.
That's because you're consistent and you say your little prayer before you leave.
Yes.
Yeah. I do that too. I do a lot of tours and take people around the town here. And every time before leaving the Walker Ames house, I always say, we thank you for sharing your space with us. We really appreciate it. Know that you can go anywhere you need to in your home. You can go anywhere you need to here in the town, but you can't go home with us. And that seems to work. So that's kind of my routine, whether I have a group of people or if it's just me. I always say that. Of course, the house I live in is built in 1890, and there's activity in my house. So I probably couldn't tell you if something did come home with me because there's already stuff going on. So you just never know, quite know. What's been your, and I'm just curious, what's been your scariest moment on an investigation? Now, for me, it's usually the living that scare me the most. So what's your scariest and or funniest investigation experience?
Well, I don't know. We do play a lot of pranks on each other, but
okay, I'll never go investigating with you then.
I think probably our scariest, like Whispers Estate, the very first time we went there, the entire time, like from the time we walked in, it felt like cobwebs were on your face. Like you were constantly wiping your face. Like we were all doing it. Like we couldn't handle it anymore.
Super heavy energy or something.
Super heavy energy. Everything was really negative that night. And then eventually, so there was a closet that we went into. So it's called Virgil's Closet. And apparently the guy was like the caretaker. And the day he retired, he went to put his tools in this closet and he dropped dead of a heart attack right in front of the closet.
Whoa.
So he's pretty crabby and he's pretty ticked off about that. So a lot of things happen in this closet. People get scratched, they get locked in, even though when the door shuts, it's like one of those that you have to lift it up, slide it over, drop it down, kind of lock.
Sure.
And I always have a fear of closets anyway and doors shutting because I don't want to get locked in anything. That's my fear.
Yeah.
And this is like a really big walk-in closet. They had like a little kitchen table type in there. They had a chair, all this stuff. So Teresa and I are in this closet running the spirit box at the same time. Also, by the way, we've seen wet footprints coming up from the basement stairs as well, going out to nowhere. So there's just all this stuff has been going on. We're in this closet, and all of a sudden, this male voice in my head says, "Get out of this closet." So I left out of the closet, didn't say anything to Teresa because I'm like, well, it's just me being freaked out, paranoid because I hate closets.
Right.
And then on the spirit box, which we didn't quite hear at the time, said, "Shut this door." So we did not do that either. And next thing you know, she comes flying out with the chair about 4 feet across the room, landed on her knees, and she's like, she just started bawling. She's like, something threw me. Like it picked up the chair and it threw me. And it was like that instant I realized they can hurt you. So it was like, yeah, that was kind of like a moment for me, and it was pretty spooky.
So where
everything going on.
Where is that place?
That's Whispers Estate in Mitchell, Indiana.
Okay.
So we did go back a second time. Teresa did not. She refused to go back. And it
Oh.
wasn't quite the same experience. We did have different stuff happen, but not
Mhm.
quite as negative as we did that night.
Yeah, that first night sounds like, there was something stirred up and going on, and you guys walked right into it.
Yes, yeah. So
So
with investigating, you just never know. Some days are super hopping, some days are not. So you just never know what
Yeah.
you're gonna get.
yeah, it's like 95% of it is boring, but the other 5% of it is what keeps you going, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. That's crazy. So it actually, she was sitting in the chair and it tossed her out of the chair.
It tossed her and the chair about 4 feet. So like we try, of course, me, the debunker, like you say, the party pooper. I'm like, well, I guess if you lean forward, you'd be right here, but you're way over here, so that's not happening.
Wow.
So because yeah,
Wow.
if she had fallen just out of the chair, she would have just landed right in the closet, like face forward. But she's
Hmm.
like 4 feet out of the closet with the chair. It's
Yeah.
just not happening that way. I mean, she's like, and she goes,
Jeez.
and you don't understand. Like, she's like, I felt somebody physically pick that up and just throw us. So
That's an insane
yeah.
amount of energy
Yes.
to be able to do that. It sounds like you guys were picking up on that when you first walked in there. There was
Yeah, it
just
was
a ton of
crazy.
energy. Yeah, wow. That's incredible. Um, well, we're getting here towards the end here, and I've just had so much fun talking with you. You got a lot of great stories, and I think I like your approach. I think it's a great approach to investigating. And how cool is it to have your own lab, your own paranormal lab?
Yes.
So
Yeah, it is fun. It's a lot. It's a lot of work too, but it's
yeah,
a lot of fun too.
yeah. I mean, any good thing takes some work.
That's right.
And what would how would people get a hold of you to rent the place for an investigation?
You can contact us directly at our website or at stcroixparanormal.com, or you can shoot us an email at boydhouse217@yahoo.com to inquire about dates and availability that we have.
That's so cool. And I think it's neat that you're a steward for the house and a steward kind of for the family too. The Eckerts, you're a steward of the history there, and that you get to share that with so many people. And I think that's awesome. That's what I try and do here with the Walker Ames house and in other locations. So I think that's really awesome, and I hope you can keep doing it for many years to come, and get that full-bodied apparition experience.
Yes, one of these days it's going to happen.
One of these days, and your camera will not be running. Just know that
That
now.
exactly. But I
Yeah.
know what I saw.
Yep. Just know that it won't be on. But no, I think it's great what you're doing there, and I think your approach is really cool, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. And we'll have to do it again sometime, and you can share new stories and experiences that you've had there at the Boyd House. And so I look forward to having you back sometime. But thanks so much, with guest Jill Shelley from St. Croix Paranormal and the Boyd House. And then go to St. Croix Paranormal .com, and you can get information on the Boyd House. So if you're looking for a place to investigate respectfully, I always put that out there. There are thrill seekers everywhere, but try and be respectful, or Jill will come after you, I'm sure. She'll know. But definitely check out their page and their website. And want to thank you a lot for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was super fun.
Right on. That's what it's all about. We got to have some fun while we talk about creepy stuff. So, it's just how it's got to be. And then I hope you all will join me next week. Next Tuesday, I'll be doing my show from the Walker Ames house. So Jill, if you want to see what it looks like on the inside, check that out.
Definitely.
I'll be doing my show from there, and hopefully with a interesting recap of an investigation in Port Townsend that I'm going to be doing this weekend. So I'll have to make some quick work of going through my audio from the investigation, and if I get anything and I can share it, I will share it. And we'll be talking about haunted places in Port Townsend, because that place is amazing for spirit activity. And then the following week, I've got members of Big River Paranormal coming on the show. And they're based out of Oregon, but they've got people kind of all over the place. And they're going to be sharing some awesome stories and audio as well. So look for that on the 29th. And then just a heads up, everybody out there, July 4th is on a Sunday. And so the Monday and Tuesday following 4th of July, the station will be off. So we'll have archive shows, but no live shows for the Monday and Tuesday following 4th of July. But thank you, everybody, for listening. Really appreciate it. This is so much fun. It's so much fun to talk to people about their experiences and their approach. And I hope you guys are all getting something from that here on Let's Talk Radio, WLTK-DB.com. I'll be on next Tuesday. And I've got a toast that I say at the end of every show. Last week, I really flubbed it up and had a complete brain meltdown, apparently, at the end of the show. But my toast is to everybody. The past is history and the future is a mystery, but today's a gift because it's the present. So don't forget to take some time each day, be present in that moment. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about what happened yesterday. But take time each day to be present and hug the ones you're with, hug everyone else virtually for a little while longer. And we'll see you next week on the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orbea. Let's Talk Radio, WLTK-DB.com. Take care, everybody.